Hello, listeners. Before we start, I just want to remind you, you can listen to Nighttime early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Include it with Prime.
You are listening to the Nighttime Podcast.
It's now been 10 weeks since 4-year-old Jack and his 6-year-old sister, Lilly Sullivan, were reported missing from their rural Nova Scotia home. As we detailed in this series of nighttime episodes, the children's mother and stepfather told police that when they woke around 10 a.m. on Friday, May 2nd, Jack and Lilly were gone. Since then, the case has been gaining international attention as it teeters somewhere between a missing persons case and a criminal investigation. In this episode, Madelayne Klein and I are going to continue our episode series breaking down the past week's developments in this ever-evolving case. We have some news coverage of the 2-month anniversary, we have a long-form interview with Corporal Tremblay of the RCMP, we'll discuss a concerning abduction attempt that took place in the neighboring province of New Brunswick just about a week prior to the children being reported missing, and a whole bunch more to get into. But I do have to say the most disturbing part of the developments we're going to be discussing is simply how quiet things have come around the case. So let's get into it. Tonight, in this episode of Nighttime, we'll be discussing all the developments that happened during our 10th week of asking, where are Lilly and Jack Sullivan?
The province of Nova Scotia is offering a reward of up to $150,000 for any information relating to the two siblings who were reported missing last month. Nova Scotia's Justice Minister says the province is doing everything they can to support the RCMP in the investigation.
I know the truth. I didn't kill Lilly and Jack.
My heart tells me these babies are gone. My heart tells me that.
Ms. Madelayne Klein, I hate to do it, but we skipped another week in providing updates in the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. So tonight we're going to have to unpack 2 weeks at once, but I don't think it's going to be very difficult.
It's not going to take us long, that's for sure. And I knew, I can't believe we're here.
Over 2 months since they were last seen, 10 weeks that they've been missing. That's a big number for a case that when we did our first episode, I thought this will be solved before I managed to hit send on getting the episode out.
Yes.
I'm shocked it's here. But before we get into breaking down the last 2 weeks of updates, let me ask you, how are you? What's new? Has any sun found its way to Regina, Saskatchewan?
A little bit. That's been nice. I had the first week of July off, so that was good. We went out to the beach with my little girl and soaked up the sun. Yeah, it was good.
Did she eat sand? I remember my kids, I hated taking them to the beach because they would just put sand in their mouths and it drove me crazy.
No sand in the mouth. She's actually really good for not putting everything in her mouth.
Okay, that's good. I have this memory of my now oldest son. I had him at the beach and I remember I brought this fresh fruit tray that we would enjoy on the beach. And I watched him take a big strawberry and dip it in the sand and then take a bite of it. So it's, I don't like beaches. I'm such a negative Nelly when it comes to any kind of summer activities. So let's just move on from talking about it. Any summer lovers are tuning out right now. We got a lot to talk about. There's been very little in the news, but still a lot to talk about. In our last episode, which we covered the 7th week in the search for Jack and Lilly Sullivan, that was a busy week. We had CBC's in-depth interviews with the stepfather, Daniel Martel, and the children's paternal grandmother, Belinda Gray. And we also had the children's case being added to Nova Scotia's Awards for Major Unsolved Crimes program. So we had a lot to discuss last time. But now we're at a dark milestone in the case. It's been 10 weeks since Lilly and Jack have been reported missing. And it's not only the ticking of that clock that's dark, the absence of the updates in this case, I think, is a little dark as well. To give us a sense of how quiet the case has been publicly over the last week or two, let's listen in on a July 2nd news piece by Global News in which they recognize the 2nd month since the children were seen. And I think when you hear what this news piece was able to share, I think it gives a sense of how little has been happening. Here's how Global News marked the 2nd month that the children have been missing.
There is no update in the investigation for the siblings who were reported missing from Pictou County 2 months ago today. 4-year-old Jack and 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan were reported missing from their home in Lansdowne Station on May 2nd. The last update RCMP provided was on June 11th. At that time, they confirmed they had collected hundreds of hours of footage from the area around their home. Police have also formally interviewed more than 50 people, received almost 500 tips, and conducted extensive search and rescue operations. Since then, the case has been added to Nova Scotia's Major Crimes Rewards program, which offers a $150,000 reward for information that leads to finding the siblings.
So Global News started right with it there. There has been no updates in this case. I was surprised to see the RCMP didn't do something, or at least give a press release. Like they were pretty good for a while there where they were providing regular updates that didn't really have a lot of information, but they were still giving an update. You think they would have done something on the 2nd month anniversary just to get it in the news again and keep people, talking and keep awareness high in the case?
Well, right. And especially because they added this disappearance to what is it, the Nova Scotia major crimes?
It's called the Nova Scotia Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program. It's a mouthful.
So are they at a standstill? You need evidence. Like hearsay does nothing. So are they at a standstill because there's no evidence anywhere?
Yeah, given all of the interviews they've done, all of the tips they've received, all the searching they've done, we've both said ourselves, we thought they must be getting pretty close to something. I feel like, behind the scenes, I'm sure it's a whole nother story, but publicly, I can see why people are starting to use words like it's going cold, because from the public point of view, we had all these kind of updates, press releases, searches were being done. If you're not on the internet reading about this case, if you're just following the news, there has been, nothing for weeks now, which would imply that, things aren't going well. But we're going to get a little bit of a sense of the investigation. As mentioned in our prior episode covering this case, CBC had a series of interviews. They talked to the stepfather, the paternal grandmother. After that episode was released, CBC released another in-depth interview. This time it was with a Corporal Tremblay. He's a strategic communication officer with the RCMP. So he's basically like a media contact, but he's in a position to answer questions from the media about cases and investigations and the processes. CBC released a roughly 7-minute long one-on-one interview with their journalist Kayla Hounsell and Corporal Tremblay, so we can get a bit of a sense of the state of the investigation by dissecting that interview that CBC aired. Let's take our first break of the night. When we get back, I've divided up the interview with the strategic communication officer into a couple sections that we can talk about. But I'll warn you before we get to it, it's going to be frustrating because this strategic communications officer is an expert genius at not answering questions. We'll hear it after this quick break.
Oh, God.
So, Madelayne, I mentioned that we're going to be dissecting an interview that CBC did with the RCMP Strategic Communications Officer, Corporal Tremblay. As I said, this was a roughly 7 or 8 minute long interview that CBC published in the evening news. This guy, Corporal Tremblay, I don't believe he's an investigator like assigned to the case. Again, he's like a strategic communication media contact type of person. And because of that, I've actually, one thing that I find interesting in watching this is it seems like no matter what the CBC reporter asks him, the answer is almost like verbatim from some of their prior press releases. Like, this guy is good.
Does he speak in riddles?
Pretty much. Let's listen. I broke it up into 3 separate sections here, and we're only going to listen to a small portion of the actual CBC piece. So for anyone who wants to hear the rest of it, you can find it all online by searching, or I'll include a link to it in the episode description for anyone who wants to see the rest of it. But the first clip I'm going to air is when CBC is asking, do you believe this to be an abduction? And if you don't think they were abducted and can't find them, what the hell is going on? Listen to how he handled that.
To be clear, we don't have evidence to suggest that an abduction took place at this time.
Is it something you're still investigating, whether or not they could have been abducted?
So we're exploring all investigative avenues. Since you look at missing children, I've been involved with a handful of cases since I've been with Strategic Communications. Most oftentimes, the children are located very quickly after officers arrive at the scene, right? And that's our hope every single time, that they wandered off and you can find the children. Because I'm sure, like every officer out there, I'm not on the road currently, but your heart is pounding, the adrenaline is rushing, you're trying to find those children, right?
And this case started just like that?
That's
what you're
correct.
describing, you thought you'd go there, find them very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And our officers were nearby in an ongoing search for a kayaker that had gone missing the day prior. I can tell you I was monitoring the situation remotely, and our officers, I could tell they were getting there as quickly as possible.
So you don't think they were abducted, but you can't find them. How do two young children just vanish?
That's a great question, Kayla. And we are asking for the public for tips and information. And to date, we've received close to 500 tips. So we have to follow up on those tips, right? Whether it's a tip that indicates that there could be something that happened elsewhere in the province, elsewhere in the country, we have to follow up on those investigative tips to rule them out. And to this date, we haven't had any confirmed sightings.
So the questions were great, but do you see what I mean? Where his answers, it was so out of the press release playbook.
And they were almost non-answers.
Yeah, but again, when you ask those kinds of questions, like, it would be great to hear him actually open the files and tell us what, the actual answers for that.
Right.
It's never going to happen. It's great that they agreed to this interview, but watching it, I just find it's an exercise in frustration because I want to hear the answers to those questions. I know that he can't answer those questions. He may not even know the answer to those questions. I find it impressive that he's able to answer them while referencing the exact verbiage used in the press releases with a straight face.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they have anything. And they are banking on people having a short attention span. And they're like, okay, maybe if we're just quiet about this, people will move on to the next thing and it'll be a non-issue. And they're still working on it, but I don't if they had something, I feel like even just because it's such a big case, they would give us a little bit. They'd be like, yes, we're on the trail, right? But I don't know.
I think as we go here, we will hear CBC ask, the CBC reporter, Kayla Hounsell, ask, do you have a case? Do you have a theory that you're working on? But it's, if they do have a theory that they're working on or someone they believe is a suspect in this case, clearly it's not an open shut slam dunk case guaranteeing a conviction.
Like everyone thinks
happened
it
by
is.
now. That everyone thinks, but even if it's obvious, you still need to make that case in a court and have it stand. So it's whatever's happening behind the scenes. I believe it to be a criminal investigation. I'm sure the wheels are turning. I'm just cannot believe that it's taken this long. And if it isn't a criminal investigation, if there is something else at play and one of the people that we talk about isn't involved, there maybe I'm starting to believe there could be the chance that this doesn't get solved. I never thought it would go this long, but
no, me neither.
All that to say, one thing we've talked about a lot is the RCMP's requests from the public that have been happening often. One of them specifically has been for dash cam footage in the days leading up to the disappearance. So many of us thought, if they just wandered off, then why do you need video 3 or 4 days prior? CBC asked that question, and I think his answer was good. He kind of swayed me a little bit with this. Let's listen to Strategic Communications Officer Corporal Tremblay explaining why they want footage prior to the disappearance.
You have said that the children were last seen alive the day before. Can you tell me about the nature of that?
So we know they were seen in public with loved ones the day prior. The specifics aren't being released at this time.
Okay, and so that's the day before, so that's May 1st, but you've specifically asked for video back to April 28th. What's the reason for that?
When you establish a timeline for any investigation, you want to know where these individuals were prior. They may have been in contact with someone that you want to know who that person is. You may see something on that footage that you didn't know about. You might see someone that's known elsewhere. Maybe it's someone that's known to police. You never know. We really are seeking all investigative avenues in this case.
So a term we hear used a lot by the RCMP is they're pursuing all investigative avenues. So by asking for the footage before the disappearance, to me as a layman, it seems highly suspicious that they would want that. And it would imply that there is something more to this case. But if they are truly pursuing all investigative avenues, I guess it would make sense to see who was in the area the day before. Maybe you see, Jack the Ripper driving by 3 days earlier, and you're like, maybe, he was involved. That would kind of make sense. But to me, were there actually, when we think back, the RCMP actually went to a woman's house a couple kilometers away and knocked on her door and asked for the trail cam footage from her home. That seems more like it's more like something they're driven to do rather than, if anyone in the public has dash cam, send it to us. This seems like it's more important than just exploring all investigative avenues. I think when all the cards are on the table, we'll see clearly why they wanted this stuff days before.
I think so too, but also because it is such a high profile case, they and RCMP have fumbled cases before. I think they just know they need to cross their T's and dot their I's. So I do hope that, like you said, when all the cards are on the table, we see that this was actually a very important aspect of the investigation. But yeah, I didn't think we'd be here. We were so sure we would get an answer within like a week or two. But
yeah, at this point, I wouldn't even hazard to guess at this point when things are going to happen. But one thing that I know for a fact is that in the absence of new credible information coming either from the RCMP or people close to the story, it leaves huge gaps in information which is being filled with rumors, speculation, mistruth, and some probably done intentionally. As the rumor mill runs wild and these theories surface, that can be damaging to the investigation, to the people associated with it, to the community as a whole. One of the questions that CBC asked the RCMP in this interview was, what would you say to the public regarding the surfacing and spreading of rumors? I'm going to play that as our final interesting clip from this interview, and tell me what you think of this.
You mentioned a lot of the tips you're getting. I'm sure you're aware there's extraordinary public interest in this case. Some people are frustrated that the RCMP is not saying more. We understand it's an active investigation. And in some cases, the lack of information leads to speculation, and rumors are rampant online, and that's done some harm on the family in this case as well. What, though, would you say to the public who are begging for answers and just want to know what's happened here?
We have to be patient and certainly rely on our news releases and official sources of information. Don't listen to those rumors that are out there. We're putting out those news releases on a regular basis with information pertaining to the investigation. We have to be very cautious as to what type of information we release because we want to make sure that it doesn't affect the investigation.
I think some people in the public are starting to wonder, is it possible that we may never find out what happened to Lilly and Jack? Is that possible?
I wouldn't be able to answer you that question today, but I can tell you that our investigators are seasoned. They are committed. I've worked with some of them personally prior in my career, and I can tell you that they are committed investigators to this missing children's investigation.
that was a great question.
Yeah. Well, he kind of put the investigator's reputation and the force kind of in the line of fire by being like, I know these people. They're all but saying they're the best of the best and they're going to solve this. He sounded confident.
Yeah. But I mean, that's his job and he's good at it. So
yeah, he's definitely good at his job. Like his answers, it didn't seem like there was any editing in this video. As I watched through it, it seems like there's just a camera sitting there filming this conversation. And despite the heaviness of the questions, he managed to come out without really saying any information related to the case and at least giving an answer to all the questions she asked.
Yeah, no, they're both very well spoken. But, and I think, I don't know if I asked you this last episode, but to your knowledge, have any of the cases that are on the reward for unsolved crimes, has anyone ever claimed that reward?
I don't believe that reward has ever been received by someone. By putting a case on the Nova Scotia Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program, it gets the case extra media attention because it's going to be in the news that this has happened. But unlike Crime Stoppers or a similar program, it can't be done anonymously. If you go to get this reward, you may be called to testify and like actually get up on, at court and do it. That could be a part of the requirement to get the money. And because of that, it's not very appealing. Generally, someone who's going to get a reward, like they know something, but they want to just tell the police and be done with it. They don't want to, go to the police station and sit down and go to court and, face the person that they're like snitching on or whatever the case may be. I don't believe it's ever been claimed, but at least it's great that Nova Scotia has something like this, and it saves, families from unnecessarily needing to set up like a GoFundMe to get money to raise an award and stuff, which I'm sure people would do without something like this. But in the answer there that we just heard from Corporal Tremblay, one thing that I thought was interesting was they asked, are you aware of all the rumors? What do you say to these people? He asked for patience. And he said, don't listen to the noise. We're going to communicate with you we're going to communicate to the public as much as we can with whatever information we can. And for the most part, it seems like they've been doing that. But as we started this episode, we heard the global news piece mentioning the second month that the children were missing. There was no announcement or no information there. And I thought that would have been good for them to release something. But I will say what it seems like is happening is a lot of the RCMP press releases and communication from the RCMP seem to be in response to things that are surfacing publicly or media reports that are coming out. Like if you recall, we heard actually with CBC as well, they did an interview with the woman who the police showed up at her door asking for the trail cam footage. She went on the news and talked about that. A day later or something, the RCMP issued a press release kind of giving their side of the story. So much of what they do is coming in response to other news that's surfacing. I kind of wish they would be more proactive. And even if it's not telling us, who did you interview and what did they say, and show us photos from the evidence, even just to provide weekly updates on the status of the investigation, just so the media has something to talk about and people have something to talk about that isn't, there was the psychic and she said we should be looking near water and I went on Google Maps and there's a lake near there. So, that sort of thing. If we had just more good information, because what I don't want, and I think everybody out there will agree with this, is what I don't want is for the case to just largely go silent. In a couple months from now, someone says, whatever happened with that Lilly and Jack Sullivan case? Because I'm already hearing messages or comments like that because it's been, 3 or 4 weeks since there's been something big in the news.
Right. And that's why it is so important for them to, even if it's a non-update, RCMP should keep talking about this case because, like I said, people have short attention spans and radio silence, people forget to move on to the next thing.
Yeah. And sadly, there always is a next thing. One thing that came out of that news, that interview there that went over my head a bit was just days before Lilly and Jack went missing, I forgot that there was a missing kayaker in that area. I believe they were located. I'm speaking off of vague memory, but I think they were located deceased. But that would explain maybe why it was such a quick response to Lilly and Jack. If they already had a team in the area involved in a search and rescue operation, maybe that would help explain why they were able to kind of hit the ground running in the search for Lilly and Jack. Because I don't think we have any criticism of the initial search. Any criticism I have with the RCMP at this point would just be in relation to the frequency of their communication. I can't criticize what they're doing behind the scenes or why they haven't solved this case yet, because we have no idea what's stopping them from, getting the ability or the authority to put the cuffs on someone.
Right. Well, that's just why I'm so confused, because, like, I don't know these people involved closely in the case, but like I have a feeling they're not seasoned criminals. How have there not been like breadcrumbs? No solid evidence. Like usually cases like this, people are sloppy.
Mm-hmm. You would think. Then that's what's making me starting to think like maybe it isn't some of the more obvious explanations. And if it was a complete random abduction, it would be pretty tough to solve. And that's what I want to get into after this final break that we're about to take. I've received a series of emails and saw a lot of posts online made that are speculating on a connection between Lilly and Jack's disappearance and something disturbing that happened in the neighboring province of New Brunswick just about a week before they went missing. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk about that and have a little bit of an exercise in what if it was a random abduction. All right, Madelayne, I want to set this up front with clear expectations, I guess, as I have no reason to believe that what we're going to be talking about is in any way connected to Jack and Lilly's disappearance, but there's a story that many have theorized could have a potential connection to the case, and if nothing else, I think it's an interesting exercise in could it be a random abduction. So a little over a week before Jack and Lilly disappeared, about a 3-hour drive away in Nova Scotia's neighboring province of New Brunswick, the RCMP issued a press release seeking information related to an alleged random attempted abduction. I'm going to read it to you here. And the reason I bring this up is I've received several emails and messages saying, like, are you aware of what happened in New Brunswick? Could that be connected? And I've seen a lot of people discussing it. So let's just put it out there. I'm going to read you a press release from the RCMP. RCMP in New Brunswick are turning to the public for help in identifying 2 people allegedly involved in an attempted abduction. On Saturday, police released a composite sketch of one of the individuals believed to have been involved. The alleged incident took place on April 21st on Route 710 in the Henderson Settlement area, which for anyone that's unfamiliar, that's a rural area in New Brunswick, about a 3-hour drive from where the children went missing in Nova Scotia. But I'll go on from there. Police said that about 5:15 p.m. that day, 2 people approached a child who was riding a bike and tried to lure them into their vehicle by offering candy. The child then ran to a neighboring house. RCMP said the 2 individuals left the scene in a black 4-door Subaru, possibly an Outback, with tinted windows, a sunroof, and signs of rust on the front passenger bumper. Police described the driver as a woman with light-colored shoulder-length curly hair, and the passenger a man, possibly in his mid-30s with a muscular build, a goatee, no mustache, and curly hair. Police said at the time of the incident, he was reported to have been wearing blue sunglasses and a green t-shirt with yellow on it. And then they're describing a sketch that was included in the release. The sketch shows what appears to be the man with the curly hair and a beard. Police are asking anyone who recognizes this person or this image or who has any information on this incident, contact the Sussex RCMP at 506-433-7700. So that happened on the 21st of April. So a little over a week prior to Lilly and Jack's disappearance. But this case has they've never identified these people. There's been no updates on it. And if what is said to have happened is to be believed, it sounds like there was a kid outside on their bike and 2 freaks tried to get the kid into the car. And, you know, when you hear a news clip like this, I often think, like, could it be some kind of misunderstanding? Did the kid maybe overreact to like a question or something from like a passing car, or, something of that nature? But in this case, the RCMP took it seriously enough to issue this press release and have the artist sketch done of what the person looked like. So this is something they were taking seriously.
Well, because it's weird. Like, please don't approach children you don't know for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
And like they offered candy, which is like so cliche and textbook for weirdos.
Yeah, of course. The only thing they didn't have was like the big white van. They were in a Subaru, possibly Outback. But what I meant is, like, when I hear these reports, I think like there must be some misunderstanding. This couldn't have happened. But this does sound like these people using candy tried to lure a kid into their car. Of course, yes, it was 3 hours away in a neighboring province, but also in a rural area. And when you think of these rural areas, be it in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick, you think everyone probably knows each other. But This idea that it's just these 2 freaks in a car, it's...
Well, and that's exactly what I was just going to say. Like, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. So that's suspicious. Where was this? Henderson County or something?
Yeah, it was, the name of the community is Henderson Settlement. I've never heard of it before. It wasn't
Moncton or Fredericton or a big city. Like, that's just very left field.
Yeah, and when you look at it on a map, it's a long distance away from Garlock Road or Pictou or even Nova Scotia for that matter. Again, 3-hour drive, so about 300 kilometers. But this idea that there are people who do this, try to lure kids into the car. You can think of the 1 in a million cases where some murderer is caught, and it turned out he, did stuff like this, like a Ted Bundy type.
I was just going to say many serial killers like Ted Bundy would commit crimes in different states because states didn't share information at that time. I don't know if they still don't, but
Yeah, but
it lets them go on a lot longer
but
than staying in their
yeah,
radius.
for sure. And when I think of this kind of incident and thinking of Jack and Lily's case, I just wonder how the police actually solve something like this. Like, how would you catch these people? For one, you'd issue the photo and the press release, and someone says, I know that guy, I worked with him, he's a weirdo. The cops find him. If that doesn't happen, let's say if these people did get that kid on the bike in their car, how are they caught? Like, how would you find them?
A stroke of luck.
Like maybe they were caught on camera a week earlier at a gas station.
Right. But you would assume that they would immediately take them out of the vicinity. And the thing with small town kids is, you know what, I don't know because I wasn't raised in a small town, but when you are, like, I would imagine they'd be fairly trusting of people because they are in a small town and it's like, oh, well, everyone's nice. I have no reason not to get in this car.
Mm-hmm. And I of course don't know Lilly and Jack personally, but it's been said that they were thought to possibly be on the autism spectrum. They were being like evaluated or whatnot. One of the early statements that the children's mother, Malaya Brooks Marie, has said is that they were trusting and she feared that they could have walked off with someone.
They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone. They're just extremely sweet kids.
Again, I'm not saying that I think that this couple in New Brunswick took them, but if this couple in New Brunswick or someone like them had have offered these kids candy as they're playing in their yard, would that be enough? Because I know I've met a lot of kids, including my own, who would probably take some chances for some candy.
And the statistic is so slim, but it still exists. Like a 1 in a million chance is still a 1 in a million chance. Like it still happens.
Yeah.
So,
and what's my thought is, and what keeps bothering me is just how do you catch them? And for one, someone recognizes them. The other way is there's so many cameras nowadays. Gas stations have cameras. Provincial borders, like if you're coming from New Brunswick to Nova Scotia, there's often cameras in areas like that. There's speed cameras just around like some major cities and stuff that would capture you. People have dash cams. People have Ring video doorbells and stuff. So could it be like a part of the investigation and getting the video footage from days prior is just looking for like every single person that's in the area? And I think you would only do that if you didn't have a clear suspect. Like I'm starting to think the reason I'm hitting all this is I'm starting to think there's a better possibility that the RCMP literally have no idea what happened.
Right.
And that is horrifying.
It is. Yeah, I don't know. It's the uncertainty. And you're right. Like if it was a random abduction, back before all the cameras, it was a lot easier to get away with it. But if it was an SUV, regular SUV with like tinted windows and every camera was at a shitty angle and couldn't get a license plate, how would they ever know? That's right. I don't know.
And just the amount of time it would take to find all the vehicles, match up the license plates, find the people, interview the people.
Right.
It'd be time consuming. It could take months.
Absolutely.
2 months. But yeah, I don't know. I just something about this story about what happened in New Brunswick. I got the email and I thought, yes, clearly it has nothing to do with this case. But then as I started thinking about it, I was just, what if it was something like this? How would they catch them? Then leading me to think like, some of the things they're doing they being the RCMP are doing kind of imply that maybe they're pursuing all investigative means, including the idea that there could have been a completely random abduction. And then it all leads me to this thought of if this isn't solved, I can't even imagine a world in which the two children disappear and and no answer is given. That's an absolute horror story. Whatever the outcome of this is going to be a horror story. But the idea that it just goes unsolved is so horrible.
Very unsettling.
Yeah, and I think I'm affected by the fact that there's been so little in the way of updates. I'm losing kind of like hope, but I'm not ready to give up yet. I still hope in my heart of hearts that by the end of the summer we have an explanation. When it does happen, whatever it is, I think it's going to be sudden and unexpected.
Yeah.
There's just going to be a news report, and you're going to get a text from me like, Madelayne,
Drop what you're
look
doing.
at this. Yeah, I have a feeling that that's what's going to happen. Hopefully it ends with the children being found alive, but
And sooner rather than
it's-
later, but
yeah, that's a literal miracle at this point, if that is
well,
the
and we've
outcome.
said it before,
So
but oh my God, I just lost my train of thought. We've said it before, but they're working behind the scenes. We are not entitled to information as they find it out. And lots of cases that eventually led to an arrest, it's been a year plus because they do need to cross their T's and dot their I's. And yeah, they can't show all their cards, and we're in for a surprise at one point.
yeah. Well, before we wrap this up, what's next? What are we expecting to hear? Like, I think as the public attention on this case slowly cools down, which it is at this point, I'm hearing much less outside of social media discussion specifically about this case. I'm hearing a whole lot less about it. What is next? Is it going to take that big update to get this back in the news? Should the RCMP maybe reveal a little bit to just drum up discussion and maybe bring someone out of the woodwork? What's going to happen here?
Well, I don't think if there's nothing to discuss, they don't want to start any more rumors. So I think there's going to be radio silence until there's either an arrest or they find remains.
Yeah. Calling back to that interview with Corporal Tremblay that we discussed, his department is called Strategic Communication. And that's important because it's not communication. It's strategic communication. If they have something to gain by releasing information, if it's strategic to do so, they'll do it. So if they're quiet, that could be their way of showing that maybe they don't need us all working and giving tips. Maybe things are getting handled. Or if they really had nothing to go on, a better strategy would be to communicate more and reveal more. So that's all considered. Like they're not just releasing press releases. It's all a part of a strategy and a plan that's well thought out.
And even those, the closest to the case, I always compare it to the Devin Marsman case. Like his mom thought that the police weren't doing anything because even she wasn't updated on what they were doing. And then all of a sudden they were like, yeah, we've done our work and there's an arrest being made. A bunch of arrests. So maybe there's, a Mr. Big Sting in the works, or, we don't know what they're doing, obviously.
Whatever's happening, it seems like a part of their strategy is to slow down on the communication. But we'll continue to watch this case. We will at least do bi-weekly updates if there isn't major developments to touch in. But we'll see what the next week brings. It's been now over 2 months. We're into the 10th week. Yeah, I think until something big happens, I don't think there's going to be a lot we're going to hear.
No.
I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Nighttime. Before I end here, I want to send positive vibes to everyone affected by the case. And I also want to invite anyone close to the story to reach out to me. I'd be happy to add your voice to the show if you care to speak out. Now, with that said, I'm going to start wrapping up this episode, but before we part, I have some thanks. First, a big thanks to Madelayne Klein for joining me and you, the listeners, for this episode. A thanks to Monty Datta, who contributes the music for this show, and Linz from the Dystopian Simulation podcast, who provides my intro and outro voiceovers. And then lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now, on the topic of support, I want to specifically thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Jory, Barb, and Brianna, we appreciate you. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can do it in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple bucks a month, and that money will fund the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those episodes 2 days early, give them to you ad-free, and give you access to a full back catalog of episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium right now at nighttimepodcast.com/subscribe. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media and letting all your like-minded friends know they should listen. Your support is very much appreciated. Now, until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
The Nighttime Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Jordan Bonaparte.
Hi, Jordan. I just wanted to thank you for scouring the internet and doing your research and watching all the news that is released by the RCMP for the Jack and Lilly updates. I'm just looking at one of your recent posts on the Nighttime page, and I'm reading through the comments, and it is unbelievable, and I can't imagine the amount of crap that you have to filter through. One lady said, maybe they got eaten by grizzly bears. First of all, a quick Google search will show you that there are no grizzly bears in Nova Scotia. So anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for dealing with all these insane comments and probably voicemails and emails that you're receiving and filtering through the nonsense and giving us the actual real information. I appreciate it. Thanks.